That way I won't waste you guys' time anymore. All right, y'all, so welcome to my talk. Today we're gonna talk about the last website you'll ever visit in your browser. It's kind of a big claim, I know, like, what am I talking about? But I do think the way that we interact with the web is going to start changing. So I want to start with a question to everyone. I can barely see anyone here, but how many of you still go on Stack Overflow? Raise your hands. Okay, I hope there's hands raised. I can't see it all. I don't, unfortunately, but how many of you actually skip Google altogether and you just ask an AI agent of what to do? Oh, yeah, that's me. I used to be embarrassed to say it, but that really is me now. Okay, so I actually was looking at a research study, and it's noted that Stack Overflow saw a drop of 98% of visits to their site from 2022 to now. In fact, by December 2025, it said that daily questions had dropped from under 4,000 because developers were starting to choose speed over community a bit. And I think this marks what I'm calling the navigation web to the intent-based web. So with the navigation web, you click through different tabs, you have breadcrumbs and stuff like that, whereas the intent web is when things come to you. You ask something and it comes to you. I can't believe I'm remembering this stuff without my notes. Side note. I'm like, which part am I going to forget? But so I don't know if this has ever happened to you and why I end up using my AI agent over Google. Sometimes if I'm not using my AI agent, I Google, okay, why is my React UI effect going off a million times? What am I supposed to do? I find Stack Overflow, but then all of a sudden, I'm 3 tabs deep into something else. I'm on TikTok. I'm like, why is Drewski dressed like a white woman? What's going on? And I'm no longer focused on my work. So for me, staying within the AI agent really helps me to laser focus on what I need to do, especially since my AI agent has access to my code base. And this hasn't been the first time someone's claimed or been concerned that, oh, the browsers might go away. I'm not saying that, by the way. I do want to make a disclaimer. Browsers aren't going to go away entirely. I just think the way we use them will change. So right, in 2018 or so, everybody was like, oh my gosh, people aren't staying on our sites enough. So product managers and other business owners created something called conversational marketing, where chatbots would essentially pop up in your site and try to keep people in there longer. To me, didn't really work. They kind of reused the whole, there's a single girl in your area that wants to chat with you, but instead, it's somebody's like, do you want to see this Kubernetes demo? So yeah, to me, it didn't really work that well, with the exception of Erica from Bank of America. I don't know, who has Bank of America in here? Anybody? I don't know, do you guys know my girl, Erica? That's my girl, thank you. Because before, I would always be like, what is my account number? I cannot find it, why is it so hidden? And now I can just open it up, talk to Erica, be like, what's my account number? She's like 004, whatever, right? I'm like, oh, thank you so much. So to me, I think that's kind of a sneak peek of working with an agent and getting that level of intent web. The only difference here is that, or the only problem here is that Erica's kind of stuck in one website or URL or app. And this also, when I've been thinking about this, I was thinking about there's 2 different types of roadblocks, right? So from the business owner's perspective, or whoever is owning the website or whatever, they're like, dang, nobody's visiting my site anymore. I'm not getting as much traffic. Everybody's staying within their AI agent. But then the idea of the intent web for a user might sound a little off-putting because AI is so non-deterministic. It rarely really understands our intent, and it always misinterprets things. For example, I do a lot of live streams where I'm working with an AI agent just to show people, or at least I did in the past, to show people how to use Goose. And sometimes I would be casually saying, all right, can you just remove that part? And then it'd be absolutely, I removed the entire project. I'm like, All right, thank you. So that brings the question of if users are living inside of agents, how do we bring that interface and control and that ability to have them like express their intent to them without forcing them back into the browser? And this is where something called MCP Apps comes in. A lot of people, when I tell them about MCP apps, they're like, yeah, I heard of MCP servers before. It's not the same thing. MCP apps are slightly different. And for folks who don't know what MCP is, it stands for Model Context Protocol, and that basically just brings more context to your AI agent through things like tools and resources. And then MCP apps extend this a bit more, where they bring a fully interactive UI into the agent itself. You don't really need to be going into your browser. So we're going to see a demo of that. I was scratching the Excalibur. It's boring. I'm going to do a different demo instead. So there's this MCP app, if this will load for me, called Neighborhood that I'm going to use. And it helps you to find like food options nearby. So I'm going to let me zoom in so you guys can see it a bit more. I'm going to say, hey, I was late to my talk. I did not eat breakfast. I'm also pregnant and hungry. What food options are nearby the Hyatt Regency Miami that will refuel me? Hopefully this works. I swear every time I use an AI agent on stage, that's when it wants to embarrass me, but fingers crossed. All right, here it is. So instead of the AI agent just responding to me with just plain old text, it's able to render a literal interface. So I could say, I don't know, what is Sweet Gaines Muffins? I want that. Sounds cool. So I'm like, I'd like to view that. And as you can see, I was able to click and like directly express my intent rather than typing something out and maybe it misinterpreting me. So now it found a couple of muffins for me. Sure, I'll take gluten-free banana walnut muffins and I'll take a box of 4. And then I can add it to my cart and I'll view my cart and I'll proceed to checkout. And this will lead me, I think there's a bit of a bug. Okay, there is a bug. But usually, you just gotta trust me, it'll lead me to actually putting in like my credit card information and stuff like that and ordering an actual like muffin. Okay, going back. Oh, now you guys can see my notes. All right, going back. The cool thing about MCP for me is that it is an open standard and an open protocol. So if you were to use an MCP app or build an MCP app, any AI agent that supports this same protocol and MCP apps will be able to render the interface that similar way, or it will be able to adapt to that AI agent. So that goes for some of the ones I listed here: Goose, ChatGPT. If you've used ChatGPT apps, those are MCP apps. They just named them something else. Claude also has it. Let me show you guys really quick. This is off script, but I was just thinking maybe I should. If I told it to generate, I don't know if you guys have done this in Claude where you tell it to generate a diagram for you. That's an MCP app, but using like generative UI. So I don't know, I'm gonna say generate a diagram of number of people who like tabs versus spaces. I don't know. I might need to give it real data because it won't know, right? I don't know, tabs 70%, spaces, what's 30%? 30%, I can't do math. All right, cool. So while that generates, I don't know if it's gonna take a while, but I'll just wait for it. Let's see. This was an off the cuff idea, maybe shouldn't have done it. Let's see what happens. All right, here we go. So that's also a version of an MCP app, but it's using generative UI in the background to basically just render like some kind of interface using HTML or React or whatever. All right, so that kind of changes where our entry point is for accessing websites. So I'm not saying browsers are really going to, like I was doing a hyperbole when I said the last time you ever visit a browser, they might not really go away, but the way that we leverage them will. So usually, or right now, the URLs are entry point, but maybe eventually the tool call will become our entry point, where you saw, when I say tool call, I mean, when I made a prompt, it basically made a tool call for me called get restaurants nearby, etc. So we're going to talk about the anatomy of an MCP app. This might be where I need my notes, but we'll see where I can go with this. So an MCP app at its core, it just starts off as a MCP server. It just has two additional capabilities, tools and resources. And that tool basically responds with this method that you see here, meta UI resource UI, and it points to a URI that starts with like UI / like colon / and it can point to a literal website or like whatever you have rendered in your code. And then it also returns this MIME type called text HTML, and the profile type is MCP app. And your MCP app could really just be a regular HTML, CSS, and JavaScript app, or it could be made with React or Svelte or whatever your preferred framework is, but you really don't need a special framework here. And the flow, as we saw, is the user would say something like, show me your app, and Goose or whatever AI agent that you're leveraging will make a tool call. The server will respond with that UI resource URI, and it will render it in a sandboxed iframe for you, and the app communicates back and forth using JSON RPC. Okay, so it has a couple of these methods to be able to talk to Goose or Claude or whatever agent you're using. So basically, UI initialize would basically say like, hey, I'm going to render an MCP app. Let's figure out what this agent looks like. Is it in dark mode? Is it in light mode? Is it really big or really small? So I'll show you guys, if I was to change this in light mode, don't be buggy, please. Light mode. The MCP app should quickly adapt and now be in light mode, and it'll change in the background, because this is like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, so it'll adapt from that. Then there's also the method of UI message, basically saying like, hey, I received the prompt from Rizel or whoever to render, that I need to render this MCP app. I'm going to send one to you. Then you have UI notifications, host context change, as you guys saw. Basically, this is when the theme changes. So as you guys saw, when I change to light mode, or if I make the app bigger or smaller, it'll be responsive in that way, and same for size change. So these are all just ways for the MCP app to understand what's going on and communicate back and forth with AI agents. Okay, so I don't know if this is an elephant in the room for you guys. Maybe it's your first time hearing of it, but MCP apps were previously called MCP-UI, and people were like, this is cool, but it's a security risk, because essentially you're just giving people access to just run like any script on your computer. Malicious scripts, data exfiltration can all happen, but they've really changed that now. They've added a lot of security constraints, so MCP-UI has now evolved into MCP apps, and now it runs within a sandbox iframe that uses strict security content policy, and it uses same origin only and a whole bunch of other stuff to make sure it's secure. We're going to try to build one, but I've built one already to help save us time, just so you can see the process. I don't do anything from scratch anymore. I use the skill. They have a skill to help you to build out an MCP app. So I'll just show you the process that I did, and then I'll show you me using it. Where is it? It might be this one. Yes. So I essentially installed this skill. And let me see if you guys can see it clearly, hopefully. And like you see, the first prompt I wrote is create an MCP app that helps me decide which talks I should attend at React Miami. I gave it the link to the schedule, and then it loaded the skill, and it did all the stuff for me. I didn't read it. It is what it is. So now I can say, now that I have the skill, I mean, not the skill, the MCP app, now I can say, what talks should I go to at React Miami? Now I know what it's going to do for me. If I read it and prompted it a bit more, I actually wanted it to render the actual React Miami site, but it made its own. If we can go to the top or let it scroll, I don't know what's going on. But it just rebuilt its own. We can look at here. Of course, this happens to me, yeah. But instead, it just rebuilt its own with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript rather than rendering what I wanted it to show. But I still think it was pretty cool, right? Because I can filter by like, oh, let me see all the AI talks that happened on day 2. And look, Rizel's here, the last website you'll ever visit in the browser. So that's just an idea or showing you how to create an MCP app. And I will end very quickly by saying, like, I don't think the browser tab is really dying because we didn't really stop needing interfaces. We do need interfaces, but the way we interact with interfaces has now changed. And our destination is no longer really that URL, it's the tool call. And we're now building for the agentic web. So as React developers, I think it's important for us to learn and adapt with that. I know sometimes we can feel resistant to AI, but there's still room for us to be able to fit in and be able to thrive in this industry. That's it, thank you.